Jack, did you save them?
God, I can't remember.
Don't worry, I've got it written down for you, mate. You didn't.
Surprise, surprise.
Hi guys, welcome back to the final episode of the Detroit Become Human experience. I'm Liam, joined by Jack.
Hello.
And yeah, let's go and see who Jack's killed off. So we get back into the game, and straight away we have a president's speech. Now, after the the revolution and all that, the president isn't happy with you, Jack. He's ordered everyone to be killed on sight. There's concentration camps, there's curfews. So yeah, we've basically gone back into 1940s Germany essentially. What we're going to do in this chapter, guys, is we're going to talk a character at a time, because as you all know, it goes very back and forth between all of them. And we're going to kick off with the conclusion with Kara. This is the scene where, she's trying to sneak off towards the bus stop. And you have to sneak through. Firstly, we get towards the Jerrys. There's the army of Jerrys from the Pirate Cove. Jack, did you save them?
God, I can't remember.
Don't worry, I've got it written down for you, mate. You didn't.
Surprise, surprise.
Now, this scene's really interesting, because if you have Luther survive up until this point, it will be Luther at this scene instead. But if Luther dies, I learnt this from your playthrough, that you get the Jerrys there from the carousel scene. Now, I tried to save Luther, and what's interesting with me, mate, is that I succeeded in saving Luther. However, when I went to escape to the bus terminal, I got caught by a flashlight. Now, as I've told you previously, if you get caught here, you don't die, but what you do get is a whole extra level where you end up at a concentration camp. So there's two different endings. There's the concentration camp ending and the bus ending. Now, they're all varied in different ways. There's about 8 ways to end each chapter there, each branch alone. However, it's really cool to know, because you succeeded here. You didn't save the Jerrys, but you sneaked away. You could save the checkpoint or the safer route. You went safer, but managed to get through. But yeah, so you're going to get the bus ending, and I'm going to get the concentration camp ending. Now, firstly, I just want to say I love the fact that Kara gets two massively different, varied endings. I think it's incredible, because they're almost like two separate games themselves, almost. And I know you haven't seen any scenes about the concentration camp, so as we progress, I will be talking you through about what can happen. But we'll start off with yourself, mate, and we'll talk about what happened in your bus terminal chapter. The first thing I'm going to mention, mate, when you're at this bus terminal is you bump into an old friend, don't you?
You do. You bump into Todd, and it was a really good moment, actually, because I thought that they wouldn't revisit this whole storyline. But yeah, you're wandering through the crowd, you bump into Todd, and initially, because everything's on tender hooks, you're thinking, oh god, you try not to get any attention to yourself, really, aren't you? You're just trying to sneak through so you can get to the border and that. And he starts kicking up a fuss. He's like, oh, you took my daughter and this and that. And people are looking over and you're thinking, shut the fuck up, Todd. But it actually plays out in a very nice way, or at least it did for me. But I know there's specific choices in there. One of them I remember, which was when Todd and Alice hug, because I think he basically says, that he's sorry for everything. You could either intervene in the hug or you could do nothing. I chose to do nothing because I felt like it was a moment where he genuinely had got on some sort of character arc, and it was a moment of redemption for him. So I let that play out, and I'm really glad that Quantic Dream gave the player that opportunity, that moment. I suppose, obviously for you, mate, you had the concentration camp ending, so when you went back to do the game and get all the trophies and stuff, you found this was a thing. What was your opinion on it?
Yeah, it took me by surprise because Todd isn't in the concentration camp ending. You'll get other characters as I'll talk to you and discuss that. But yeah, I thought it was really interesting. And in the last chapter, if you guys watched that, I mentioned how I thought Gavin was lacking a final story arc, or they could have added like a layer of humanity. It was a little one-dimensional. I really like the fact they gave this to Todd. Yeah, very controversial character. You know, there's all these news reports and stuff about this domestic violence scene. So a lot of you will probably be of the opinion, and that you're more than entitled to it. It's probably a justified opinion that Todd probably is a monster and he does not deserve this level of redemption. However, I quite liked it. You know, I thought it was a really interesting scene. It gave you the opportunity to forgive him because at the end of the day, if you play your cards right with the dialogue, he will let you go free and he will just accept, yep, they're better off without me. They want to be free. Yeah, so it was really interesting. And really nice as well that when the guard comes over says, oh, is there a problem? That he goes, no, sorry, a misunderstanding, and he actually covers for you. So, yeah, really nice to see that from our old nemesis Todd.
It is, and you know what? What makes it more touching as well. I think, given the backdrop of this whole story, this division of humans and androids, you get these little moments here and there, don't you, between a human and android. Obviously, in this case, it's Todd and Alice and Todd and Kara. But you have the moments between Hank and Connor early on in the game. And it's sort of like there's that glimmer of hope, isn't there, that the humans and the androids can live together side by side. And it gives you that sort of that illusion that, you know, maybe there can be a happy resolution to this. But yeah, no, very, very welcome addition to the game.
So obviously the next bit, you know, you want to board this bus, and to do so you have to get tickets. Now the one way to get tickets in this game is you see a couple that drop their tickets on the floor. Conveniently there's 3 of them, a couple and their kid, a bit like, you know, Kara, Luther and Alice in my instance, because I still had Luther at this bit, but obviously, you know, like not at the bus terminal, but still. And they drop them. Now you have the decision to keep them or pick them up or leave them. And then again, you even get another prompt where when she asks you, oh my god, I've lost the tickets, have you seen them? You can either keep them or go be like, yeah, got them, and give them back. Jack, tell us about your decisions and tell us why.
I held my nerve and kept them because if I remember rightly, I was walking around that area for some time and it seemed as though this was the only course to get the ticket. And I was just straight up thinking, like, if I give these tickets up, I've then got nothing when I queue up and try to get through the border. So my game's going to end there and there for these two. So unfortunately for the couple, yeah, I chose to keep the tickets, and by all accounts, I think I made the right decision there, mate, from what you told me.
Yeah, so I do think, and viewers, correct me if I am wrong, I believe there is another way to avoid the scene entirely. I think I have seen a video where you can escape with Rose and Adam if you go towards the back and then you find a way to kind of go in a car with them. I have recently learned that, actually. I might be wrong. However, if you do have to go on this bus route, you have to keep the tickets. I've seen a playthrough where someone didn't, and you queue up and they find you're an android, and Alice and Kara get shot on sight. So it's a very grim ending for them, and your game can end there for Kara. But also, I think, you know, when we talk about it in a grand scheme of things, I would have probably done the same. You're desperate, you need that bus.
Yeah.
Also, you know, you took it from humans. At the end of the day, they're just going to be, you know, a bit of money, like a bit inconvenient. Oh, they missed their bus. With you, it's your life. You know, I think, you know, in the grand scheme of things, I think it is almost like a justifiable decision.
Yeah, of course. I agree, mate.
Fantastic. And then, obviously, so yeah, you get to the border control. And this is interesting because you get there, you think you're free, you're in Canada, but before you can, you know, go away eating your maple syrup and bacon pancakes, you've got to obviously go through border control, and you find out that they're scanning everyone that gets through to see if they're an android. And you're in a moment of panic going along the queue, and you're like, oh my god, I'm going to get caught. So the whole minigame here is you've got to scan around and kind of like find out what you're going to do, your plan of action.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk us through what you did? And if not, I can fill in the blanks for you.
Yeah, so I do remember it a little bit, and this is again a point I come back to from the previous video when I talk about false endings, and I understand because, like, for me, again, when I got to the bus, I was thinking, yes, they've got on the bus. That's the end of their story.
Yeah.
So then when it revisited them again at the border crossing, I was like, God, like it's not over yet. But yeah, I mean, from all I remember scanning round. I remember looking at the guy at the desk, and I did see Rose in the queue and gave her a little nod. And then we met up in the bathroom, had a bit of a chit chat, talking about, what the intentions were, why she's leaving as well, X, Y, and Z. But I mean, in terms of how it plays out after this, I don't know whether it was dialogue choices or if there was something I had to find or hack. But I didn't really know how else to approach this whole queue scene, mate. So maybe, yeah, like you can fill in the blanks and tell me how I could have got a different ending from the one I did.
Yeah, of course. So, like, obviously, you went to the bathroom, you had a chat with Rose, and you was like, look, please look after Alice, and, there's that going for you. Essentially, there's 4 ways you can get through. Now, you can either just risk it for a chocolate biscuit and just walk straight through. You can sacrifice yourself. You can sacrifice Luther if he's there, or you can sacrifice the Jerrys, because if you look to... You'll have Luther with you, but if you look to your right, there will be a gang of Jerrys. Now, obviously, you left the Jerrys and Luther to die back at Jericho.
Yes.
So, what's interesting to know is that, yeah, like, if you manage to save them, they actually can come in handy here. Because, for example, if you want to sacrifice the Jerrys, you can kind of, like, telepathically send a message to them and go, look, Jerrys, please let us through. And then the Jerrys will run, get shot down, and as you get to, like, the guard who's about to scan you, you kind of pull like a bit of a face, and then they like look at Alice like, oh, little girl, and then the guard, I'm pretty sure he says something along the lines of, or the border control guy, he'll say something along the lines of, oh, don't worry about that. There's no androids in Canada. You'll be fine. And then he just lets you straight through because obviously you've seen animosity elsewhere. Yeah. The same could happen if Luther tries to get through. Unfortunately for you, mate, like the only 2 options you had were just to chance it or to sacrifice yourself, right?
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
So yeah, just tell us a little bit about what you did.
So yeah, wasn't it? Didn't I try to chance it? I remember at least either way. I remember going up to the desk and whether it's I got scanned and then like the lights went off and it was quite clear. I wasn't gonna get through. There's a quick side note to what you just told me about the Jerrys and Luther. In a way, I suppose then in reflection, it does pay to be a nice person in this game, because if I did go out my way to save Luther and the Jerrys, then I'd have had that option later on. So, but yeah, I think that was what happened, and then ultimately Kara got killed at the final hurdle, which was gutting. But I do console myself and say that her whole purpose, her whole objective was to get Alice safe. Ultimately, Alice is going to be in Canada safe with Rose. So like it's a tragic ending. And obviously, it would have been nice for her to play the mother role and X, Y, and Z. But again, I wouldn't say I'm dissatisfied.
It's a nice bittersweet ending, isn't it? Because, like you say, it fulfilled a purpose. You could have died at the Zlatko mansion. You could have died at the hands of Todd, but you got her free to Canada, so you can hold your chin up high with that one. No, for sure. I think actually on reflection, what my notes say here anyway is that you actually sacrificed yourself, and I remember you specifically saying something along the lines of, "This is what Kara would do."
Yes. Yes. No, you are. Yeah, that's coming back to me now. Yeah, no, you're right. And yeah, I think, that is what she would have done. So I feel like, she sacrificed herself. She let the little girl go. And I think as well, the fact that maybe she, I say she, it was me controlling her. the fact that she let Luther go, the fact that that she let the Jerrys go earlier, maybe it was her time to sacrifice herself rather than be selfish and whatnot. So yeah, like you say, perfectly a bittersweet ending.
No, I get you. Another interesting thing as well, mate, if you chance it, we'll go up to the border control guy, and when he's like, right, I'm gonna scan you, you look at him with puppy eyes like, please let us through, like quietly.
Right.
And the border control guy will then look at the TV, and it will have the public opinion. So this is where public opinion really comes in handy in this game. If like Markus did loads of pacifisty things, and the news reflects that, Kara, Alice, and Luther can go away free. They'll just go straight through, and then you get a happy ending. And what I think happened in your thing as well, you had quite an animosity-based news.
Of course.
The public opinion was really low, so I don't think this would have worked for you anyway, so it probably is a good thing you went for the sacrifice self ending. And I also think that does mean that Kara could not have survived for you. I don't think there's anything you could have done to have saved Kara at this moment, based off of previous decisions, which is also really interesting. But yeah, like the guard would have looked at the TV and saw that androids have killed a load of innocent people, and then he would have just yelled, "They're androids!" And then Alice would have, Kara would have died. Alice, I'm not sure if she survives there or not, but she might just go to Rose, which is what happened in your playthrough anyway. But yes, you probably got the nicer out of the two endings that you could have picked, to be honest, mate.
Yeah. Oh, right. Okay. No, that's fair enough, mate.
Yeah, but really cool to see the public opinion have an effect there.
It is good. Like, just to quickly touch on it again. It's great to see. I know that I was, technically, I know it didn't happen for me, on the wrong end of it, but it's great to see that get paid off. There's so many other choice-based games where there'll be certain strands, certain things. You think about, say, Telltale, so and so will remember this. No, they won't. It won't really matter. In 5 minutes, they'll be dead anyway. So even Supermassive here and there are guilty of it. The fact that this game, a public opinion bar going up and down really does matter. It's the Quantic Dream have done their job in terms of building a sophisticated web of choices and outcomes.
Turns out these games really work brilliantly if you spend more than 2 years making it, apparently. But I'll talk a little bit about what happened to me at the concentration camp, because as you remember, I got caught as Kara and Alice. And I had Luther with me the whole time as well. Now, it's really interesting because you come out of this metal container, you have to walk into this massive concentration camp, which is set at a recycling centre, and you're told to take your skin off. So no androids are dressed up in human clothes. They have no skin, no hair. You're all kind of iRobot looking, just androids basically, who are white and silver, I think. And it's really dark to see, almost, humiliating, because they're kind of covering themselves up a little, kind of exposed. And then you have more of these soldiers in masks, and they're gunning some of you down. And as you can see, it's really sad. You're just kind of in a long queue and pen of people where they're just letting people through one by one so they can get executed. And it's just a prolonged death, basically. It's really dark and traumatizing because you're just hearing gunshots and screams the whole time. Really dark scene. And the worst part is that you and Alice get separated into two different zones. There's two pens, and you get split into two different ones. And there's loads of different ways this chapter can end as well. There's a really dark one I learnt about where one guard shoots an android and they're dragging them away, and you can volunteer to do it yourself. And you do so, and in dragging this dead android to a pile, you can actually jump on a truck and abandon Alice and just play dead. And you can actually get away, Kara, without Alice, and Alice can die at the concentration camp while you get away alive. Very interesting. Such a little percent of players did this, but a few people did. And whether it was on a replayability thing, but I thought that was so interesting that you could have a really dark Kara ending. I don't know what you make of that, mate.
No, that's fantastic, though. Obviously, yeah, on a story level, it's absolutely horrible. But
even for Savage Jack.
Yeah, the fact though that someone like one of the devs like thought of that, put in there, it just goes to show that there's just so much going on with like these choices, and it tests you sort of as a person, because they know that as the player, people are probably sitting there wanting to save their characters, so like the ones you play as. But because you've been thrust with this responsibility about looking a child, there's that sort of conflict there, isn't there? Like, I want to save my character, I want her to reach the end, but then you've got this child who's defenseless that you've got to look after as well. So I think they tap into that quite nicely. But yeah, no, brilliant, mate.
But yeah, so as we mentioned, that it's just such a dark scene that can happen. Luckily, I didn't pick that one. So what I did do is you get towards the end of the thing, and you can I'm pretty sure you can kind of see there's this opening where you can escape, but you do realise that you need a distraction to get through to make sure you and Alice can get through. And at this point, I'm thinking this is the end of the road for Luther. This is where he's got to go out, surely, and like sacrifice himself. Luckily, though, I met a few characters along the way. One being Ralph, the guy that I mentioned at the squat back in the On the Run chapter, where you bump back into him because I previously met the guy and he was there and he was just about to get killed, and Ralph is just there like, oh, it's good to see you again. Another set of people that I met, mate, which you'll find interesting, is they're called the skinless androids, or the scarred androids even. Now these are Zlatko's little monsters that you free from the basement.
The zombie-like ones, yeah.
Yeah, and they all come back, and essentially you've got to nominate one of them to distract the guards, get killed, so you can basically escape with Alice. And I nominated these guys. So Zlatko's creatures escaped the basement, sacrificed themselves for me, and me, Alice, and Luther broke through. And I was really happy with it because I didn't get to Canada, but I had a happy ending where Luther and Alice, woke up, or basically ended up alive at the recycling centre, because they escape on the tow truck and they end up at the solid waste landfill. And so my ending was really happy. Obviously, I didn't get the bus ending, which is probably like the perfect ending. But I'm pretty happy that I managed to recover myself going to the concentration camp. I really like the fact this scene was in there, that they give you a whole extra level basically if you get caught, and it's just so cool that I found it on my first playthrough. So it just goes to show you that like if you mess up at this game, sometimes it might kill a character, sometimes it might give you a whole other level, which is just really cool to me. So fascinating.
So would you say then, having played both the concentration camp and the whole bus terminal thing, do you have a preference? Like, are you glad you had the concentration one first?
I am. I feel like it's more peculiar. I think most people know the bus one first, and then they find out, oh wow, there's this whole concentration camp ending.
Yeah.
I had it the other way around, and because it was my blind playthrough, I kind of see it a bit as like my child, and I'm really proud of it. So like, I'm very much happy, and I do prefer that ending. I do think it is the darker, the more raw ending. It's not the perfect one. It's not the one where you escape to Canada and you're with Rose and you're all one big happy family. However, it's just a really cool, like, good alternate ending, and one, I'll take. Connor. So obviously, Connor is evil in your playthrough, mate. He remained as a machine. He couldn't become a deviant. Now, this is the scene where he's there with a sniper, and he's aiming to shoot Markus. In Jack's playthrough, Hank comes out. Now, what's really interesting to know here, mate, is that it doesn't have to be Hank, because Hank can previously die in the game. There's a whole scene before where Hank can kill himself at his house if he doesn't have anything left. But if he has a good relationship with Connor, he'll try and, stop Connor from doing this. Do you want to tell us a little bit about what happened when Hank tries to stop you from shooting, mate?
Yeah, I mean, to go completely off script, because I remember at the start of this game I was thinking, that's going to be that typical cop thing where, you got a more senior one, he has to start to appreciate sort of the rookie guy over time. Completely went off script, and it broke out into a fight. didn't it, mate? Basically, throwing punches here and there. I'm pretty sure there was a moment when was it that he had you like over? He had Connor over the edge. He pulled him back, or it might have been vice versa.
Yeah, it was vice versa. So you had Connor, all yourself, and you could have dropped Hank, and then you chose to spare him.
That's it. Yeah. And but I no, because you see it so often. I've seen it in video games before, where the person that obviously Hank in this case chose to spare. I'd had a feeling he'd have another bite at the cherry to try and do me in, and I'm pretty sure like it's a quick time event or something. And I'll just come out and say it. I successfully completed that quick time event, and Hank fell to his death. So it was a bit of a shock, to be honest, because I thought that could have played out differently, considering that I wouldn't have wanted to shoot Markus. Which clearly that's what he would have wanted as well, because I think at this point he wanted Connor to show some empathy, even to androids. So it felt like they were on the same page of sorts. But actually, then again, no, because Connor would have been there to kill him. So I don't know. Anyway, yeah, Hank dies. Sorry, mate. I know he's your favourite character and everything. But I'm killing everyone off at this point. So if you've got a favourite character, folks, I've probably killed him.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting to see, and it was certainly different to mine, because obviously, like, Connor didn't even go on the rooftop for me because he wasn't, he became a deviant for me, so I never had this snipe scene at all. Yeah. It's interesting because if Hank dies prior, you'll get different characters that do it. One being Captain Allen, who is the cop in the very first level on that rooftop scene that gives you the missions. He's a bit like aggressive towards you, like just go out and save that girl. That guy can come back and with his little cop friends, and then you can actually have a massive giant fight scene where you kill all of them.
Yeah,
which is really cool to see. So it's nice that they bring characters back, but in certain branches, so it rewards people for going on different, courses of action. But yeah, no, with this Hank scene, it's pretty sad because obviously, you had this like father and son bond that goes the whole way, and then obviously your relationship with Hank got a little hostile at the end. Obviously, there's the Eden Club fail, and then what was it? It was Kamsky's, mansion. It really did it, wasn't it? Where you killed Chloe and Hank just lost all respect for you. Where he stormed off, drove without you, and he was like, "Yeah, I thought you were human, but you're just like, no, I'm here to hunt deviants." And because your answers were so kind of robotic, he almost was like disappointed, and he had this faith that you could become a deviant almost. And then it ends in this hostile ending where he just sort of says, "Look, these guys want to be free." And then he ended up, it's like you didn't want to kill him, but it's like you had to, and it was pretty painful to watch. It's really interesting because I had this whole weird ending where Connor went to this massive factory full of androids where it was almost like that scene from iRobot where you've just got androids multiplied in this giant lit up factory, and you end up fighting this other Connor because Amanda tries to get you to replace you with another Connor, and it's like a Connor versus Connor fight. It's so interesting. And then Hank comes in this scene, and then Hank basically is going to shoot one of you, and you have to convince him with dialogue that you're the real Connor.
Right.
And you have to, basically use your knowledge of Hank to prove you're the real one. So you have to, mention, maybe, things about his son. And one thing that's interesting is that you had this theory, didn't you, that his son got killed by an android, right? Which is why he's hostile towards androids.
Yeah.
So here's a bit of live learning for you. So what's interesting is that you mention that to Hank. You're like, oh yeah, androids clearly killed your son. And then Hank reveals, no, a drunk driver human killed my son. And a human android was just too high on red ice. Oh no, sorry, a human surgeon or doctor was too high on red ice to get out to save my son. So so they had to save an android. They had to get an android. So, interestingly, it's a bit of a red herring. It leads you down this path to think that's why he hates android, but it's actually the opposite. He hates humans for, putting an android on the, sun when, like, a guy was, basically coked up on red ice or whatever it was, in order to help his own son who died because of this. Which was just so interesting. It's like another kind of hidden Hank arc that no one really knows about. I don't know what your thoughts are on that, mate.
Really cool. I do like that because, like, obviously it goes against my theory. What I would say, though, is I wonder why he was giving me such a hard time then. Like, why? Because, that's, like when you first meet him and stuff, he seems to be more pally or sort of more in with humans than he does with androids, if that was the case. But I've got to admit, when you were talking then, mate, do correct me if I'm wrong, or if not, someone in the comments. I think I may have found a potential flaw with my story and the whole Hank Connor thing, because I 100% agree with you that it was at Kamsky's mansion when Hank sort of turned on Connor for me. But then, if that was the case, why on earth did he give me his key when Connor said, I can, stop the deviants, I can, stop this war? Why is it that he gave me the key to solve how to, get to Jericho, to do all that then? If he wanted me to spare Markus and, show empathy, why did he let me go through with that? I don't know if I've explained that properly, mate, if you get what I'm saying, but it feels like on the one hand he wants me to be empathetic towards the androids, but he also sent me off to find out where Jericho was to stop the deviants.
No, I do agree. Maybe he doesn't fully know you're going to solve it as well. I think as well, another thing with Hank is that he kind of goes on a story arc with Connor and he kind of learns alongside him. So he probably does hate androids at the start, but he sort of sees humanity as time goes, as humans become more and more savage. I think, Hank kind of sort of sees them, not much different to anyone else. And towards the end, especially when he was on the rooftop talking to you, he just sort of says to you, come on, Connor, they just want to be free.
Yeah.
So I think Hank almost has a story arc himself where he becomes more pacifist and he learns to respect these androids, which is why it's super interesting that if Connor goes alongside Hank, they have this really cool father-son relationship. But if Connor remains deviant, they end up clashing, and this is why Hank falls out with him big time, because they're not on the same wavelength or page when Hank thought, they are. But, it is a very good question, and I would like, some feedback in the comments as well on that, because I definitely think that Jack raises a really good point with that one. Obviously, on the rooftop, your weapon gets damaged. We'll skip ahead to Markus here, mate. Now, this is the big war scene. It's almost like a really iconic, beautiful scene where you're running with the flag, you're planting it. Very interesting from me, who went for a very pacifist game, so I never got this whole warfare scene. But yeah, you have a massive battle sequence, mate. Just what did you think of it? Were you a fan of this chapter?
No, I absolutely was. I'm pretty sure as well, if memory is right, there's a whole thing beforehand where you get to choose whether to, peacefully walk towards them or march. That could be getting muddled up with something else. But yeah, it's great. Naturally, as is the case with this final couple of chapters with me, there was sacrifices in this moment. But it was great because you have these moments there's the music, you can peek out and you've got people firing, there's explosions, there's guns, and it's just a great action. This is what I want. Don't get me wrong, it'd be great to keep everyone alive and it would be great for this and that, but I want fun, and this delivered on that. But I think, speaking of sacrifices, wasn't this when Simon and Josh died? Wasn't it? Was it this bit?
It was, yeah. Whether they can survive or not, I don't think so. But yeah, you had to see Josh and Simon unfortunately get killed in this battle.
Yeah, so basically all of Jericho but Markus were dead at this point. and you've slowly got to make your way through. There's some QTEs in there, and I got the impression that I somehow won, because didn't the humans then start to retreat, or was it that just that the army got killed or something like that?
Essentially, obviously you get through the quick time events. There's a lot of like army tactics where you've got to choose whether to charge and cover fire, and then it gets to the bit where there's a giant tank that comes out. Now you manage to bazooka that tank, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
And that's what does it. The humans flee. The news broadcasts say like, "Oh, the androids have won the war," kind of thing. So it's like big success.
Love it.
So yeah, like it kind of ends with like the androids winning. However, it's not the final chapter or the final moment, because here walks out Connor for the final boss battle of the game, mate.
Yeah.
And what I love about this section, right, is because first of all, I didn't get this because Connor wasn't, Connor was a deviant for me. Because you got Markus versus Connor, it ends in a final battle. And what I love about this game is it gives you the choice. It says, do you want to play as Markus? Do you want to play as Connor? And it doesn't. You're not necessarily choosing like who's going to win, because you can still pick someone and lose the fight.
Yeah.
So there's almost like 4 different endings, But just tell us a little bit about this, mate. Did you pick good guy Markus or bad boy Connor?
I picked Markus, which is funny because Connor is my favourite character of the 3 in this game. But I feel like I committed so much at this point to the android uprising. I felt like I had to see it through the end. So yeah, like it was great. But you're so right. Like the fact that the choice was there offered itself is fantastic. But you've still got that jeopardy, haven't you? Like if Connor won, then obviously Markus, he then falls, but then he could be seen as like a martyr for the androids. Like it would sort of remain open-ended as to what happens next. I think with mine it was a bit more conclusive, wasn't it? Because I then killed Connor, and that permanently ended him, and then sort of stood victorious. It's strange because I suppose it comes back to this whole bittersweet thing, but Markus has lost everything and everyone. He's like the king of the ashes. Like he's stood there alone. He's lost everything, but he's won. Like it's a weird thing to get your head around. Like, well, I say won. He won in terms of like the war with the humans, but at such a heavy cost. It was, I don't know, I quite like my ending. Like, I know it's weird because I know you're supposed to like keep everyone alive and all that thing, but I quite liked how things played out for me. Like, it has this bittersweet nature to it that I sort of quite dig.
Yeah, I mean, obviously in short there, like out of the 3 main playable characters, you had Markus alive, Connor and Kara dead. But what's interesting is that almost Markus is arguably the least favourite one, but I do agree. There is a beauty in keeping him alive because he is like kind of like your Neo. He is the main character, and I think it's very fitting as well. Despite Connor being maybe arguably the best character in the game, he doesn't become deviant. He remains a machine, and it's really fitting because it's really sad to almost have to kill him. But it's almost like what Hank went through. You almost just have to realize that he's not going to change, and he's thus an enemy, and you have to kill him. He's in your way. And there is a little beauty to that story arc, so I do agree, although your ending wasn't probably the most popular, the one that, or like the perfect one maybe, there is definitely a beautiful arc to your story. And I very much liked your ending as well, and it was so enjoyable watching you play that one, mate.
Nah, honestly, fantastic, yeah.
One thing, a few things I will mention is I'll talk a bit about what I did. Obviously, I went for the pacifist ending, and I think I had a bit of a battle as well, but obviously I didn't have to go up against Connor. If you go pacifist, you have less of you, and humans win and they surround you. And so I didn't win my war, not because I failed the QTEs, but because I didn't go on the front foot. I went pacifist.
Yeah.
And I kind of had a bit of a cop-out ending. I'm not really a fan of it, but if you're soppy, you probably would love it. You can choose how to when you're at gunpoint and you're about to die, you and the last few androids in this plaza. A few options came up. I think one was like hands up, one was like do nothing, one was like fight, and one was sing. Now I was like, who in the right mind is gonna shoot someone who's gonna sing? I think, like, you know, these are American soldiers here who are gonna, like, probably, you know, tear jerk a little bit if I sing. And I was all about keeping these characters alive, so I sung my heart out, me and North.
Right.
Me and North sang our hearts out, and yeah, like, the president was like, yep, stand down, don't kill him. And then that was my ending for Marcus.
God. Yeah.
So, not the best, but obviously I was happy that doing all the safe pacifist choices did lead me to a very safe ending where all three characters ended up alive for me, so I was pretty happy with that. Any comments on that before I move on to my final conclusion?
Great that you managed to sort of keep, you know, finish the war on amicable terms between the humans and the androids. I'll admit, if I was watching a movie, I saw that as an ending, someone bursting out into song, and then they said stand down, and then the president got all the... I'd be like, oh, really? But it's a video game. You was a lot more consistent in your playthrough than I was. I think I was pacifist, then aggressive, pacifist, then aggressive. I stayed in the middle at times. My choices bounced around a lot. It's a lot more consistent with yours, and it paid off with, you know, that ending. So, like, do you know what I mean? You know, fair play to you, mate. Like, it is what it is.
Mate, I mean that's true. And one other thing I want to mention, mate, is that what's interesting is that the whole game ends in a Marcus speech. I mean, actually, here's a fun fact. It doesn't have to be Marcus. Now, if Marcus dies, which he can obviously do at the Freedom March or, you know, escaping Jericho.
Yeah.
Instead, you'll get something else where you'll have North becomes the leader by default. And because North is a lot more radical than Josh, she naturally becomes, like, you know, like she will revolt no matter what you do. So the androids will always have, like, a hostile ending.
Right.
And if North wins, she's the one who does the final speech. Here's something that happens for Connor, mate, when you become deviant. Amanda hacks you, and Connor has this mini game where he goes back into his Zen garden and he's in his own head.
Right.
And you know the weather gets progressively worse and it's snowy.
Yeah.
There's a full-blown blizzard. And it refers back to Kamsky telling you, I always leave an exit route in my programs.
Oh, I see where this is going. Yeah.
Yeah, you have to find your exit route. And you know there was that... If you explore the Zen gardens quite a few times, and I know you did towards the end, like one of your chapters before Crossroads, or Last Chance Connor even, you find that little handprint, and you just have to find it, and it's really difficult because you've got to find it through this blizzard, and Connor's walking really slowly because he's got to sift through it with, you know, his arm in front of his head.
Yeah.
But yeah, you've got to use that, and essentially if you don't, Connor gets overtaken and hacked by Amanda and kills the person doing the speech. So it could be that Connor kills Marcus mid-speech or kills North mid-speech, which is such an interesting ending. I find that fascinating. Luckily for me, I managed to override it, and Connor remained deviant and blocked that kind of Amanda from getting in your head. So yeah, I mean, any takes on that, mate? Really interesting how that could happen, and it also probably answers... I know the Zen Garden was a little bit of a kind of an unknown force for you, I guess, and maybe that ties up some loose ends for you.
Yeah, because I had no idea who Amanda was. I remember at first thinking that was a real place. It was only after a couple of times visiting I was like, no, this feels like it actually might be some sort of programming. No, yeah, the fact that you had that potential of that final little twist at the end, that's really cool. Do you sort of think, you know, where we've been saying in this series about how Connor and Marcus, they do seem fairly plot armor heavy. Like, I know Connor can die, but he comes back every time, doesn't he? And the fact that you could have that at the end after having this, you know, whole victory, this whole speech with Marcus, he can turn again and, you know, kill him. But yeah, like, really, really superb. I'm running out of words to sort of describe the various elements of this game, to be honest, mate.
Yeah. It probably is like a top 3 game for me, I'm not gonna lie. It's just an absolute masterpiece. Yeah, no, I mean that's fantastic. So, yeah, I mean those are our endings. We all explained it. Yeah, I love it. You just look at the flowcharts afterwards. That's one thing I love about this game. The flowcharts. It tells you all the possibilities. So there's no stone unturned. You can literally do so much, and it's like I mentioned the analogy. It's like an open window kitchen where you can see what goes on. They don't hide anything. They literally say, "Yeah, this is the game. These are all the routes." And it's because they're proud of their product. They're really happy to show you it, and I just think it's a genuine masterpiece. And yeah, I've always loved this game, and it's been an absolute pleasure taking it up to your house, so you were able to finally experience this game that I've been talking about for ages and raving about how it's one of my favorite games. So yeah, Jack, I mean, this was your first playthrough.
Yeah.
Yeah, sum up in a few words your overall thoughts of it.
Wow, impossible. Say first of all is, yeah, honestly, mate, thanks so much for bringing it, because I'm so glad that I've played this game now. Whenever I've seen it, in forums and things, it's always billed as like one of the best choice-based games. I can completely see why. There's so many things, like the different genres, the visuals, the deep themes, and the philosophical angles that you can bring to it. The story arcs, the character arcs. There's so much that's knitted together here brilliantly, and of course the choices, because it's it's a choice-based game. It all marries, and I was thinking this to myself not that long ago. Actually, I was thinking, like, if I played this game and Until Dawn, let's just say, like, my memory was wiped of Until Dawn, and I played Until Dawn and this game in quick succession, and I had the whole nostalgia element wiped away, I think I'd prefer this game. I know that it could be a little bit of a controversial bombshell to end on, but objectively, I think that this is a better game than Until Dawn.
It's a lot less flawed than Until Dawn. Until Dawn has a lot more plot holes in it than Detroit Become Human from a story point of view, and also in terms of the amount of endings. I think Detroit Become Human is just a bigger, better game, but it's tough to say. They are very different, and Until Dawn just does hit my feels in just a really unique way. But yeah, incredible, mate. Before we wrap this up, I just want to give a special shout out to the loyal fans that have been with us for this entire series. So that includes you guys, ETG, S, Oracle Plays, K Davison, and Tapjana L. Thank you very much for always commenting on these videos and being an absolute, pleasure in talking to while supporting us. You guys have been a real great deal to us, and I know that you guys just been there thick and thin throughout every chapter, talking us about everything. So thank you very much for joining, guys. Anything to mention, Jack, before we wrap things up?
Here, yeah, I absolutely agree with that. And you know what? As we've been talking through this series, I've got video ideas now, like in terms of bonus content that we can do for Detroit, mate. So to all of those people out there and any other listeners that haven't been commenting, etc., do keep an eye out, because this is a very big game. There's a lot to talk about, and a lot to talk about in more detail. So do stick around if you're a fan of Detroit, because we'll be doing content in the future.
So yeah, we'll be heading on to doing a lot more Devil in Me content, so we will be falling back to Supermassive Games. But let us know what video games you'd like us to cover, and as Jack mentioned, let us know what Detroit Become Human videos you'd like us to do, whether it's character quizzes, just any random thing like that. If you guys come up with some ideas, let us know. If you want us to talk about a certain topic as well, we'll be sure to do that. Because yeah, I'd love to revisit Detroit Become Human. I'd love to do a lot more videos based off of this game. It's been a pleasure playing it, and we hope you guys enjoyed the series. On my end, thank you very much, and we'll see you in the next one.
Yeah, take care, guys. Thank you very much. Bye.
Get out of here!